Hello, today I'm going to tell you a story. A story that happened on a winter night at a secluded lodge in the mountains. A story that at first glance might seem normal, but there is something about it that should not be ignored. Something that will make you think twice about what might be lurking in the shadows. So if you're ready to listen, stay with me, because this story will leave you with more questions than answers.
The wind howled outside. It was biting and cold. Snow fell in thick sheets. It blanketed the Pine Hollow Lodge. The old building stood alone. It was nestled deep within the mountain's embrace. The world outside was a raging storm. Inside, everything was still. The fire crackled softly in the stone fireplace. Its warm glow barely reached the corners of the large, empty common room. The only other source of light came from a single lamp. It was perched precariously on the heavy oak desk. Behind the desk sat a figure. He was shrouded in the half-light. His name was Thomas. He was a young man, new to Pine Hollow Lodge. It was his first season working the winter months. He shivered, pulling his thick woolen jacket tighter around himself. The silence of the lodge was unnerving. It was broken only by the howling wind and the occasional groan of the old building. Thomas sighed, glancing at the old grandfather clock ticking slowly in the corner. It felt like hours since the last car had left. The storm had worsened throughout the evening. Now, he was completely alone. He hoped no one would try to brave these treacherous mountain roads tonight. Suddenly, the phone on the desk jolted to life. Its shrill ring pierced the silence. Thomas jumped, startled. He stared at the phone as if it were a living thing. It continued to ring, each shrill tone grating on his nerves. He hesitated, then slowly picked up the receiver. "Hello, Pine Hollow Lodge," he answered. His voice was little more than a nervous whisper. "Please," a woman's voice, breathless and frantic, filled his ear. "Please, you have to help me. I need a room." An hour later, a figure emerged from the swirling snow. It was a woman. She was bundled in a thick coat. Her face was hidden by a hood. Thomas watched from the window as she struggled towards the lodge. He felt a chill run down his spine. He couldn't explain it. Something about her seemed off. She practically fell through the front door, gasping for breath. Immediately, she pulled back her hood, revealing a young woman with wide, frightened eyes and snow-dusted hair. She was pale, almost as white as the snow outside. She looked exhausted, terrified. "Thank you," she breathed, her voice trembling. "Thank God, I thought I wouldn't make it." He showed her to a small room overlooking the front of the lodge. She didn't unpack, didn't even turn on the light. She just sat on the edge of the bed, staring out the window. Her face was pale and drawn. Thomas left her be. He couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over him. The silence of the lodge seemed to press in on him. Every creak of the old building, every sigh of the wind sounded like a whisper. Shadows seemed to dance at the edge of his vision. He found himself constantly looking over his shoulder. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He was about to call it a night when the phone rang again. He picked it up, his hand trembling slightly. It was the woman. Her voice was even more frantic this time, laced with a terror that chilled him to the bone. "He's here," she whispered, her voice thick with fear. "He's found me. Don't let him in. Please, he's going to—" The line went dead. Thomas stared at the phone, his blood turning to ice. He had just shown her to her room not 10 minutes ago. Who had called? And who was he? He heard a noise then, a soft scratching sound coming from just outside the front door. He slowly made his way to the door, his heart pounding against his ribs. He peered through the peephole. No one was there. As he pulled back, he saw it. A figure standing in the middle of the common room. It was tall and gaunt, shrouded in shadows. Its eyes, two glowing red embers, fixed on him. He felt a cold dread grip him, squeezing the air from his lungs. This was no ordinary man. The woman's voice, filled with urgency and terror, echoed in his mind. "Run!" she screamed. "Run and don't look back!" He didn't need to be told twice. He spun around. He ran for the back door, his heart pounding in his chest. He could hear the creature moving behind him, its heavy footsteps shaking the floor. He fumbled with the lock, his fingers numb with fear. Finally, the door swung open. He burst into the night, the icy wind whipping at his face. He didn't stop running until he reached the main road. He glanced back at the lodge, its silhouette dark and menacing against the backdrop of the swirling snow. He could almost imagine the creature watching him from the window. Her words echoed in his mind, a chilling warning he knew he could never forget. "It's not after me," she had whispered, her voice filled with dread. "It's after you." And in that moment, Thomas knew he would never truly escape the haunting of Pine Hollow Lodge.